This is Ria Dark, MS, LSW, substance abuse professional, mental health first aid. Okay, everyone, thank you for joining me here today. My name is Ria Dark, and today's program is going to be about the new reality that we're all currently facing. And so, good morning if you're joining me in the morning, good evening, good afternoon. But regardless of what time of day you're joining me, this is the new reality that we're all living in. And what we want to do here today is to be able to figure out how to thrive in this new reality now that we're going back to work with all these new rules and regulations and policies and procedures, because we all want to get along and we all want to help each other out. We all want to go back to being professionals and be proud of the work that we're doing, being able to serve our customers. And so that's what today's program is going to be about. So thank you so much for joining us. And when you leave here today, you will feel confident and you will have the skills that you will need to do well in our new reality, this new normal. And so what we want to first understand as we're looking here at the agenda is we want to determine what exactly will this impact of this post-pandemic era, this new normal, post-COVID-19, what is the impact that it will have on the workplace? And regardless of what the intricacies are of the policy and the procedures that are in place in your particular workplace, we're going to examine the overall impact that this current climate, this new reality will have. And we're going to find out ways that we can increase our psychological immunity. We're also going to take a look at our knowledge immunity and our physical immunity. All of these things play a role in us being able to sustain ourselves during this new reality and these challenging times. And, as I speak to you tonight, where I'm recording this on the eve of June 1st, more things are happening. And so this is something that's ongoing, that we have to constantly be aware of our psychological immunity. We want to identify appropriate interventions and communications. Of course, it's not going to be the same. And yes, we're going to have to grieve some of the things that we've lost. But one of the things that I want to focus on, and generally speaking, whenever I do seminars or webinars, I try to focus on the things that we can be in control of and to take a look at the things that we can look forward to. And we're going to also learn how to have some of those tough conversations around mental health and around COVID-19 at work. Mental health was, certainly a subject that we had all begun paying attention to pre the pandemic. And now more than ever, we're aware that we need to be attentive to these things. We need to create a climate where there is no stigma if people are, struggling, if people feel like they need additional support, and that we openly, support others in getting that help that they need, and how to have some of those tough conversations when we do see people struggling, or maybe it's you that's struggling, and, maybe you're trying to figure out, how can I ask for help? How can I ask for some flexibility? How can I explain my situation? So that's some of those things we're going to talk about here as well. And then also take a look at what are some of the resources that we do have available to us to aid in the efforts to maximize belonging, minimize suffering and isolation. Because, regardless of where you stand on the subjects, there's this continuum, right? We have people on one end of the continuum who feel as if they're not safe enough. And we have people on the other end of the continuum who feel, their rights are being taken away. None of them are right. None of them are wrong. It's just their perception, and their perception is their reality. And regardless of where you are in the continuum, regardless of what your politics are, those things don't belong at work. At work, we are required to follow the policies and the procedures and the protocols that are in place. So we can leave those personal opinions and belief systems out of the workplace because they don't do anything besides create dams. They build dams instead of building bridges with others. It creates more complications that you're not going to help anything. You're not going to change anybody's mind. You have to, if you do have concerns, we're going to talk about ways that you can share those concerns in an appropriate way, in appropriate channels, but to make things difficult for others and to not be a part of trying to be a part of a virtuous cycle to help everyone out, to be able to assimilate as best as we all possibly can, is something that we don't want to do as professionals. All right, so let's take a look at some of the impacts first. So when we have a sudden outbreak, right, whether this outbreak is a pathogen such we are experiencing here today, or maybe the outbreak, I always like to use 9/11 as another situation where we had an outbreak of terrorism. And then after that, everyone was, there was a stress response. We lost thousands of Americans. People didn't want to fly or they couldn't get home. Then afterwards we found out that there were other terrorist attacks happening all over the world, and it was in the news constantly. So these outbreaks of anything in general will trigger a major stress response, right? We're going to react, we're going to be angry. There's going to be a lack of trust. People didn't want to fly then. Now people are wondering whether it's safe to fly now. And then we're going to, break down. We're going to fear that, this fear is going to immobilize us. And that's really the issue at the core here of our program, is we want to understand that we are embarking upon a new reality, and it's time for us to overcome our fears and move forward. And so it also creates a sense of emergency, that things can be fatal, that things are spreading, whether it's terrorism, whether it's a pathogen. Also we feel as if, when we are in an emergency, we feel that there's limited resources to handle the situation. And so what we want to take a look at then is start to understand that there's a complexity around these things. There's this information overload. Certainly, we're all experiencing that, and sometimes I'm feeling like, wow, what else could possibly happen? Then there's rumors. This happened at the beginning of the outbreak. There are rumors that the military was coming, and the rumors of, all these other, large amounts of deaths and things like that. And so, also the issue here is we also have social media and the media playing a role here. We found out that there were some erroneous reports. We found people who didn't believe in some of the reports that were going on. We found out that social media was being manipulated. And we find other people who then believe in some conspiracy theories. So there's a lot going on here. Again, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong at this point in time. I just want us to understand what's going on. Because if we can understand, then we can develop compassion, and we can have empathy towards others and see where they're coming from, right? And then try to build the bridge from that point. Okay, we're not going to change anyone's mind. We're not going to convince anyone. Millions of times I hear people, I see people arguing on Facebook or Twitter, people being snarky on Twitter. And it's never happened. And even before this all happened, when I was doing trainings on fostering inclusion, I would tell people, some things that we don't talk about at work. We don't talk about sex at work. We don't talk about politics at work. Why don't we talk about politics? Because again, it creates these divisions, and where both sides are, typically it's, right now we're looking at two sides, but both sides see this as, it's the end of the world if this happens or that happens, and you have to listen to what I have to say, and how could you believe this? And, it never has happened where someone says, you know what? Thank you so much for sharing all of that. You have changed my mind. You have opened my eyes. You have swayed me. That never happens. And so what I tell people is, if you feel this strongly about this, when you leave work, please go and support your candidate. Go and support the initiatives that you are so passionate about, but please don't disturb people at work. Our jobs, especially in this environment, are hard enough as they are, in the way that they are. So this complexity requires a high level of professional need. It's important for us to be the best professionals that we can be, to treat people with respect, to be understanding of other people's challenges. So yes, it's difficult to deal with, but these are multiple aspects and dimensions that need to be taken care of. And the only way that we can do that is that we can free ourselves up from these things that are holding us back, wanting to be argumentative, wanting to persuade other people what we believe, being afraid of moving forward. Okay, so these are some things that are happening during this outbreak, right? So I want you to understand why people are behaving the way that they are, and maybe you are, right? Because you're fearful, because you're angry. And so also this uncertainty, and this uncertainty, comes in a lot of different forms. Maybe your HR person doesn't know how to be able to support everyone's mental health. Your managers, there's no playbook for what is happening here today. And your managers don't really know how exactly to move forward. So, they're probably going to make mistakes because there's so much uncertainty. You don't know how things are going to play out, right? So there's not a lot of information because we don't have a history with this. There's so many uncertain factors and unclear direction. And it's not that people don't want to be clearer, and it's not that people are trying to, make your life difficult. Everyone is trying to do the best that they can in this uncertain environment of this new reality. So it's important for us to keep this in mind, that these are the impacts that are happening universally. And so all of these things are so sudden, and every single day things change and new things come around. So the best thing that we can do, as I mentioned, we have to understand and be able to, recognize that this is something that's going to be fast developing. Stability is not really going to be there right now, and we have to understand there's going to be high frequency changes. It's part of the territory. Now, will we ever stabilize? I have no idea. None of us do. The only thing that we can do is understand it to our best ability, take a look at how it impacts us, and then do our very best to minimize the impact to self and others, and do our very best by trying to move forward. And we'll take a look at how to do that here today. So know that, this stress that we're experiencing, has an impact on our work performance. It decreases. Now, there are some of us that really do really well, that thrive in these types of environments, that maybe will not do well later, right? Some of us kind of thrive on this energy and this challenge. But generally speaking, work performance will decrease. Everyone talks about people are working from home. That's not what's going on here. We're at home trying to work. I myself am head of household, and I'm here as a working mom, and I have, almost a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old underfoot, with nothing to do. No play dates, no playgrounds, no camps, no schools. It's very difficult, and me having to try to manage that. So I'm sure for all of us, our work performance has decreased overall. Now, when we're going back to work, even when we're looking at some of those states where people are going back to work, we're looking at people's, in general, even their work performance at work, because everything's different. We have to, re-examine how we go to work and how we interact with others. So all of these things are going to cause our performance to decrease. Plus, we're distracted, right? Whether we're distracted from, news cycles, whether we're distracted by our own, inner thoughts, whether we're distracted by trying to figure out how to work in this new environment, these things are common. We're all experiencing these challenges. You are not alone. Relationships will suffer, whether these are relationships with your coworkers, relationships with your bosses, your subordinates, your neighbors. I know, sometimes, you're feeling as if, we're feeling isolated, right? So these relationships are going to suffer because people don't have the opportunity to have the face-to-face, to, have a moment to really discuss and flesh things out and build bonds. So relationships will suffer because people are, suffering under these circumstances of isolation, as we mentioned earlier. And our lifestyle becomes unbalanced. Why is that? It becomes unbalanced because, a lot of us are, maybe reaching for negative coping mechanisms. Alcohol consumption has gone up 60%. Our lifestyle may become unbalanced because, for myself personally, I know I love going to the gym. So that was something that was a really big part of keeping myself healthy, keeping myself motivated, keeping myself mentally well. And so that lifestyle becomes imbalanced. So, things aren't the way we don't have the supports that we can normally reach out to. And just in general, we may not be sleeping, we may not be eating, so everything becomes unbalanced. And so that can lead to physical symptoms, right? We might start to experience heartburn, we might start to experience other types of gastrointestinal stress. We might begin developing headaches. We might be insomnia. And so lots of different things are going to now manifest themselves in our physical bodies. And of course, if you have health problems already, your chronic problems might flare up, or you might just start developing health problems, as I mentioned. You might have some acid reflux, which could lead to an ulcer. So, and feelings of depression and anxiety become apparent and even overwhelming. And yes, that is absolutely true. And, also this feeling of lack of control. I don't know what I'm going to do about it. What I will do here today is I will help you develop immunity, and you will leave here with a better outlook and with some solid, concrete, specific tools that you can use to help you navigate through this new reality. So how can you build your immune system, right? So when we talk about immunity, right, we're not just talking about our physical immune system, right? We want to talk about our psychological immunity, our physical immunity, and this is my favorite, knowledge immunity. I'm going to start with knowledge immunity first. When I first started doing these trainings at the beginning of this pandemic, I encouraged people, follow the news cycles, see what's going on, find out how you can keep yourself safe and healthy. I don't recommend that anymore. At this point in time, where we are, we know that things are not accelerating the way we had first anticipated. Although there's still danger out there, but most of us at this point in time have gotten the message, right? We got the message. We know what we need to do to stay safe. We know what we've heard all the news cycles. We've heard our governor speak on daily press briefings every day. We all know right now what's going on, and nothing is really developing very quickly. The only thing that being exposed to all of these news cycles is going to do is, number one, distract you from what you need to be doing, consume your precious time. You're not going to feel any better. You're not going to feel any safer. You're not going to feel any more informed. You're just going to leave agitated. And you're going to you're going to have like a negative response to it, emotionally, and physically in your brain chemistry. There's no need for this right now. I absolutely recommend that people take 24-hour media cycle breaks. And then social media as well is completely useless right now, because all we see is snarkydom in Twitter. We see haterdom in Facebook. Everyone's just spewing what their opinions are, back and forth, back and forth. It's not necessary. We have to preserve ourselves. We have to preserve our focus. We have to preserve our mental load. We need to let go of something because we need that mental load to deal with the things that are actually happening to us, right? So I need to have the space in my brain available to figure out creative ways to keep my kids learning, to figure out ways that I can continue to engage with clients, ways that I can continue to create content that's useful to people. If I'm bogged down by all this other stuff, I'm not going to have the ability to come up with these creative solutions. I'm not going to have the ability to be a provider because I'm going to have wasted my mental space on that. And I really mean wasted. Of course, I'm not asking anyone to put their heads in the sand. I'm not asking anyone to go live in a cave. I'm not asking anyone to embody the maxim, ignorance is bliss. But certainly, at this point in time, you need to preserve parts of yourself for the things that you really need to be doing for you to move forward successfully, as a parent, as a significant other, as a son, a brother, a boss, an HR person, an employee, an administrator, whoever you are. So please, that's one of my biggest suggestions. If you need to create some of that space, and if you feel really impacted in your mind, if you can feel that kind of all the stuff kind of sitting on your head, that's the best thing that you can do. Don't even look at the notifications. Definitely social media. You can just leave that alone for days at a time. Nothing's going to change there. So that's my number one takeaway. That should be your number one takeaway from here. Is like you need to start having some of those knowledge immunities, having some of those media and social media holidays. And so physical immunity, I'll talk about that next. And of course, all these things are related, right? There's really no one start of the other. But physical immunity means, especially now that we have less access to movement, that we go out of our ways to find creative ways to put movement into our lives. At the beginning, of course, I was keeping up my yoga routine, and then it wasn't the same for me. I ordered some weights, and every once in a while I would, do workouts, and I'll cut myself some slack. However, I still do make a point to go for walks, throw the ball with my kids, go hiking with them. I still, like I said, I still do some stretching. I still do my weights, but not at the level that I used to. We go bike riding. I try to find things that I can do, and and I've heard a lot of people in some of the webinars that I've done that were live, talk about they do daily walks with their partners. Other people who have fur babies, they make sure that someone had said once that the dog is sick of getting walked by everybody. I thought that was cute. But there are ways that you can engage that also kind of like it's a twofer, right? Where the dog's getting exercise, the kids are getting exercise, you're having meaningful conversations with loved ones. I've heard people also having meetings where they're not doing video meetings, they're doing audio meetings, and they're walking while they're talking during their meeting. I thought that was brilliant. So you have the ability to just kind of chat in a meeting, and you don't need to have anything in front of you. And your phone can also double as a computer if you need to look at a document. That's a really great way to build in some movement during that time. Now, if some of those of you who are going back to work, the gyms are opening in some of the states, you try to get back into that program, or maybe you now more than ever realize, whoa, this pathogen thing is probably going to progress much like humans do, right? They're biological beings. Just like we progress, they're going to progress as well. And maybe you're realizing, wow, it's more important now more than ever for me to be aware of my physical health so that I can build my physical immunity. Another part of the physical immunity, other than movement, of course, is what you fuel your body with. Now, whether you are keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, or whatever other persuasion you are, all the nutritionists from those persuasions will agree that 3 out of the 4 things that you put into your mouth come from a plant. And when I say plant, I don't mean vegetable. I mean seed, nut, bean, vegetable, fruit, flower. Those are the things that you need to be eating 75% of the time. The other 25%, if you want to be keto, if you want to be paleo, if you want to be vegan, is regardless of any of those things. I do recommend, though, if you are going to go the keto and the paleo route, that you do high quality proteins, and you can do that by supporting your local farmer. You can find them, they have community supported agriculture called CSAs. There's farmers markets in almost every community these days. Please take care to make sure you're getting the highest quality ingredients into your body of animal byproducts if you choose to eat those, and also please support your local farmer. And so psychological immunity. One other thing I wanted to mention, I almost forgot that, we also see that a lot of these factory farms and slaughterhouses, we also see that there has been a large incidence of pathogen outbreaks. So again, another reason not to eat that type of food. Psychological immunity. Now, this comes from, making sure that we are engaging in things that, we enjoy, to make sure that we are practicing gratitude. Gratitude is a very powerful tool. I know that at one point in time, my kids were just kind of like having a meltdown, like a huge meltdown, both of them at the same time. I just sat them down and I started reading a book about gratitude, and their brain just kind of shifted. Another thing that you can do for psychological immunity is practice meditation. Now, meditation doesn't have to be sitting lotus style and do Om breathing. You can color in coloring books. Sometimes people, their cooking is very meditative for them. There's a lot of different ways that you can practice. Gardening is another one. You want to engage in things and where your mind is kind of quiet and still, where you are, being optimistic. I said gratitude is important. meditative. All of those things are very important. Engaging, creating things, working with your hands. These things help you feel like you've accomplished things, making sure that you're sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night, 80% of the time. It changes your brain chemistry when you don't sleep enough. It's so very important. So we want to kind of think about that also as well. These are the 3 areas that you really need to focus on if you want to be able to not just survive, but let's thrive in this new reality. It is possible. We're going to take a look at some opportunities too. It's more than just, I just got to get through this. It's more than that. So let's start to shift this a little bit. So remember that, in order to have this foundation for mental health, there are some things that you may need to figure out to continue to be able to build on that. Maybe you need to understand, why do I have to wear a mask? Maybe it's, hey, the state has mandated it. That's how it is. Maybe you might want to say, why do we still have a cafeteria open, right? Some places are choosing not to have them. Some places are. And they might say, this is part of our contract. So if there are changes that are required of you and you aren't sure about why they're there, you are welcome to seek to understand, not question. There's a difference, right? We're not here to question why the changes are there, okay? If you need understanding, you can certainly ask for clarification in an appropriate way, not grumbling to coworkers. I would say at the water cooler. I'm not sure that that's going to be a thing, but we don't want to be actively disengaged employees. Actively disengaged employees are the kinds of employees who go around griping and complaining about things on and on and on and on. This doesn't help anyone, once again, and also doesn't get you what it is that you want, the understanding why the change is required, okay? But also, maybe you understand what the change is, but maybe you don't understand, like, what is it that I need to do? How will this impact me and my position and my staff? What are some new responsibilities that I might have? And how can I best react to the change? So when we start to get understanding around why it's happening, how it's going to impact us, now we are empowered to decide how we're going to react and create the best type of choice, right, around that. So, again, maybe you're not sure what's expected of me. You can communicate with them. What behaviors then, once you find out what's expected of you, you can say to yourself, what behaviors do I need and that are required of me to achieve the results that I would like? And then, now you know what you need to do, but maybe it's going to be hard. And so where can I find support? And also, what support can I provide that will be most effective? We want to, tend to others and befriend them, but also, want to tend to ourselves as well. So not only do we want to seek out support, and almost every person that I know who is in the field with me, the mental health field, the wellness field, the EAP field, all of us have sought out help in one form or another. Whether it's we sought out help for our children, whether it's we sought out help for ourselves. This is something that is bigger than us, right? And so, if you are struggling and you're trying to think, well, I'm going to get through this, why would you want to do that when you have resources available to you that in many cases, such as in your employee assistance program, are free and confidential for you and every member of your family. And also keep in mind, if you are doing okay, what support can you provide that can be most effective? If you're a manager, if you're an HR person, what are some things that you can do? Maybe you can create ways where staff can still bond. Maybe you can create ways that people can voice their concerns on a regular basis, give them opportunities to do so. Maybe you can, make sure that, there's a lot of messaging around as to what the policies and the procedures are, so people aren't wondering, like, well, what is I'm supposed to do? So think about that. Now when we start to think about these things, when we start to think about what can I do to support others, and we start to, look forward to being helpful, that also gives meaning to what we're doing. And that's one of the best ways that we can, really build a foundation for mental health, is through these ways. Now, so obviously we have, this new reality. And, we need to, understand that we are going to have, some challenges here, obviously, right? And one of the things that I mentioned earlier was the fact that we really want to try to avoid being this actively disengaged employee. But, sometimes people don't really understand that they are doing that they're having this impact. Sometimes people think that by making negative statements that that's a point of contact with others. For example, when people complain about the weather, oh my gosh, you see how cold it is out there? And so people say that as a way of like, oh, this other person is probably going to connect with me on this one. So we want to try to be aware that some of us have more of a tendency to do this and we don't realize that it doesn't help, right? Especially now that we're all being challenged. So, we have to be sensitive to some of this impact, right? So I hate this, right? And maybe I don't agree with this. And maybe you might not agree with what's going on now, but the situation that we are in right now at work is going to change. These measures are not going to be there forever. Okay. And then, so we have to, and then people who are really happy with how things are now, later on, when the measures change, they might not be happy with it. So know that, this is not going to be permanent. But if you feel lonely, it's okay to feel like you're going to be isolated. Maybe a lot of us now, depending on your state, depending on your company's policy and whatever, measures that they took from their particular health department, is, some of us may feel very isolated. And especially those of us who were at home working, who, lived by themselves, probably felt very lonely during this time, more than usual. And now we don't have the ability to go out as much anymore, and this and that. Currently, some places, are still very limited. So we wonder, what is the right way to behave in this situation? But that's more of a powerful statement to make. What is the right way to behave in this situation? That's a good one. But we're saying there's no need for this. Again, it's not really helping. If you feel this way, the appropriate way to do this is to approach your manager when they have time and your HR when they have time, because they are busy too, trying to get everything done here. You can express your concern or even call your EAP. You can call them up and say, I feel like I shouldn't have to wash my hands 3 times a day. I shouldn't have to not be able to sit at lunch with my coworkers. So, yeah, you might be scared. It might be too hard for you to handle, and all of these things are okay, but understand that there's an appropriate way to express that and have those needs met. And that's all we're asking anyone to do. We're not asking everyone to love it, right? We're not asking everyone to say, this is awesome. Hey, let's do more of this. We're not asking people to do that. We're asking people to be aware and be sensitive and understand that this impact is pretty universal and that there's appropriate ways to manage it. Okay. All right. So curious, some things that we want to think about are, what are some of your current struggles? So when we can be aware of what we're experiencing, right? Only then are we empowered to do something about it. If I don't understand that I am feeling this constant pressure to achieve, and this is exactly what I'm going through right now. I feel right now that I need to still crank it out, even though I'm in a situation that's not sustainable for me. I feel the needs, that I need to, be able to be the best mom and, be the best employee and be the best, boss and be all of these things, depending on what role I'm playing in this particular, where I'm doing my work. And so I feel like I have to put out I have to do the best. I have to churn it out. And I feel as if I don't, that the boat's passing me by. And those of you who are in manager positions and HR positions and supervisors, you might feel this constant pressure to have to make sure that everybody's taken care of and that I've attended to everyone's needs, and you know the messaging is perfect. We studied everything. That is very real. That is very real, and we just cannot. Here's the good news. If there is such a thing, everyone around you is on that same kind of timeline, right? Everyone around you is still trying to figure stuff out. Everyone around you is taking longer to get things done. Everyone around you is doing the best that they can. Okay, so don't worry about it. Everyone's kind of going along at the same pace as you are. Now, feeling out of control, yeah, of course. Of course, we feel like we're out of control. Decisions are being made every single day that impact our daily lives. Where we can eat, how we can eat, where we can play, how we can play, whether we can go here or not go here. Absolutely, we're feeling out of control. And sometimes it feels that there's no end in sight. And so, what I want us to think back on, right, is just I want us to think back at the beginning of all of this, what we were experiencing, okay? I know at the very beginning of all of this, I freaked out for just a second and I started calling people that I knew in various states to see what was going on there, to verify some of the things that I'd been hearing in the news cycles. And I started wondering to myself, do I need to go buy a bunch of food? Why are people buying toilet paper? Do I need to head for the hills? What do I do here? I don't know what to do. And so, that is that's a very powerful, traumatic experience to have. Now, I think that, we can all agree that things have settled down a little bit. And, the things that we thought we were going to see didn't happen. We were looking at Italy and we were thinking, oh my goodness, body bags everywhere. And so there is a little bit more of a sense of control over the pandemic itself. But now, when we're going back to work, we have a new feeling out of control in this new reality, right? So just know that that will normalize as well. And you will just kind of learn to adapt to that. So going back to my 9/11 example, at the beginning of that, we felt like, oh my gosh, can I ever travel again? Can I ever get on a plane again? How's that going to work? And so, people who are living in New York, I was living in New York at the time. Do I need to leave the city? So, and I did. But in any case, you might be feeling as if you're out of control in this new reality, but know that in a couple months' time, it'll just become it'll be part of your normal everyday life. Okay, so we just need to kind of understand that's again a normal thing. It's new, and so all of this kind of mental load that I talked about earlier, of course, is going to lead to difficulty concentrating, right? And then again, feeling depressed, helpless, and anxious. This is universal. If you need help right now, it's okay to temporarily, maybe even, start a medical regimen, maybe, take some pharmaceuticals, maybe, see a therapist. There's so many things. And so another current struggle, and I know that this is happening a lot, and is, especially, for those of us like myself who are head of household. I lost my partner last year, and that was obviously a very traumatic event for me. And so I feel a little bit more prepared, for this. It's been less than a year. And I thought, wow, what else could go wrong? And here we go. And so, we need to understand, these things, this feeling out of control, depressed, these are things that happen. These are traumatic times and traumatic experiences. But what I want us to do, instead of looking at this way, now let's take a look at this in the flip side. If you feel like you're feeling out of control, what can you do to make yourself feel like you're more in control, right? So we pretty much, we all know what that is. Control the things we can control, right? So can you control how much media you consume? Yes. Can you control how much social media you consume? Yes. Can you control that was your knowledge immunity? Can you control what you put into your body and how you treat your body? Yes. Okay, that's your physical immunity. Can you control, and also physical immunity, can you control, going outside, walking, talking with partners, talking during meetings? Can you control making something, cooking a good meal? Yes. Try to control the things that you can. Can you control, being supportive to others? Can you control asking for help? Yes, you can, right? Constant pressure to achieve, that one is the one that you just kind of have to say, I need to let this go, right? This is called what's called a cognitive shift. So basically, you're going to tell yourself, it's okay. There's no way I need to produce the way that I think that I do. This is a challenge for everyone. Everyone's kind of in the same boat. It's okay. I can let this go. I can just do the best that I can in the time that I can. Remember, you're not working from home. You're at home trying to work. And, for those of us who are still at home working, and then, difficulty concentrating. Maybe you need to take, to sleep more. Maybe you need to do some deep breathing. Okay, feeling depressed, helpless, and anxious. Maybe, you need to see someone, see a counselor, maybe just see your EAP, childcare. I know that there are lots of places that are offering some additional, support for childcare. I know a lot of childcare facilities are opening up. And maybe even, finding someone who might be willing to, you guys can become a pod. I've heard of people doing that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make that happen, and there's a lot of online resources out there. I'm not talking about the school learning environment, but now they're doing a lot of things for kids online. Um, there's a lot that you can try to do to kind of help you get to deal with some of these current struggles. And again, please don't hesitate to reach out for help. Speaking of, now a lot of times, we talked about not only do we want to ask for help, we want to kind of check in on other people's mental health, right? And so some things that we say sometimes may seem insensitive, but when we say them, they don't come from that place. So here's one of some of my favorites. I thought you were stronger than this. This is one of my dad's favorite things to say to me. And I know my dad loves me, right? But my dad's saying it because he's trying to shake me out of it. He's trying to get me to toughen up. He's trying to get me to, come on, you can do this. And so, of course, when you hear this, when you're not feeling strong, right? Of course, that doesn't help you. And so sometimes when people say these things, it's not because they are not validating you, even though, those of us who are in the emotional intelligence field, this is what we'll tell you, you're not validating the person's experience. They're just trying to make you feel better because they don't have better words for it. So this is why I have some of the better words here. So some of these things, like, there are a lot of people worse off than you, lighten up, you're blowing up promotion, all these things, right? Again, we just might say this very cavalierly because we don't realize that they don't have a great impact, right? They don't land really well. Here are some things you can say. So here's one thing to say. I can't fully understand what you're feeling, but I offer you my compassion. This is a great one. You don't have to try to guess what they're feeling. You didn't have to say a feeling word in this statement, right? So one of the things that we tell people to do when other people come to them with issues is we try to tell people to mirror, say to them what you think you hear them feeling. It sounds to me like you feel frustrated. So some people just don't have that emotional vocabulary. So you could just say, I can't fully understand what you're feeling. So you don't even have to come up with an emotion, but I offer you my compassion, but I certainly care. My favorite one for coworkers is, you're important to me, I value you, right? So when you say I care about you, that sometimes might not really work in a business environment. But you're important to me, I value you is really helpful, okay? If you need a friend, I'm here for you. Again, if that feels good to you, okay? I care about what you're going through. Yes, you do. This person's working with you. The average American spends the majority of their waking life at work. Of course you care, right? And when all this is over, I'll still be here, and so will you. Again, depending on the type of relationship you have. I'm going to get to that next long one in just a minute because it's my favorite one. Um, things are really uncertain right now. That can be scary. Notice, we don't have to offer them, we're not, we don't have to offer them anything. We're just validating that it's scary. Like it's scary for me too, right? It's scary for all of us. And another good one to do, this is a good one for work as well, link and leave, is I'm willing to help you find additional support. Like basically, I can't do this for you. That's my top tip for HR people. A lot of times human resources managers become the school counselor and everyone goes to them with their issues. And so it's important for them to be able to say, I care, value you, you're important to me. Can't fully understand what you're experiencing right now, but, I offer you my compassion. And, things are really uncertain right now. That can be scary, and I'm willing to help you find additional support. Boom. Okay, so that's a great way we can do all of those things and help people out. Now, this last one, this middle one here works either at home or at work. So a lot of times when someone comes to us with a problem, we say, if you need anything, let me know. I'm here for you. Well, I wouldn't know where to start with that. That is so vague. And so I don't know, is this person willing to watch my kids? Is this person willing to do this audit for me? Is this person willing to take on this client for me? We don't know. So it's hard to ask for help when you don't know exactly what they're willing to do. So this is why it's really great. And also, you don't want to say that to someone and then they tell you, oh yeah, can you please do this for me? And you're like, oh, what did I get myself into? So it works both ways. So what you want to say is, hey, would you like me to take over this client for you? Would you like me to make this phone call for you? Would you like for me to take this report to accounting? Would you like for me to, whatever the case may be, man your phones for you so that you can take a 5-minute break? Something concrete and specific so that they can say, sure, you know exactly what you signed up for. They feel good about that. They know that you offered something very specific and concrete, and that you can say yes to that, and it's good for them. In your personal lives, you can say, would you like to watch the kids for you? Can I buy you? Can I shop for your groceries? Did you need me to run any errands for you? Did you want me to, take the dog for a walk? Those types of things. So when you keep it specific, concrete and specific, concrete means it's evidenced by the 5 senses, right? Sight, sound, smell, touch, taste. That's something concrete. Vague terms are like, I care about you. Let me know if you need me. I mean, I don't know what to do with that. So those are really great ways. My voice is starting to crack. Those are really great ways that you can, be available for others. Okay? So that's one of my favorite things to do. Okay. Some more tips. Focus outward, right? We want to look out and say, what's my problem? How can I solve it? Remember we talked about what are some of the challenges you're experiencing, okay? Now focusing inward, we have to understand that we need to do some of this inner work, right? Self-esteem, self-confidence, positive self-concept. And how do we do that? When you look at how you've overcome before, you can understand that you can do this, that when you first experienced your last trauma, that you thought the world was over as well. I shared my own personal. I thought, well, first of all, my whole future before me was gone. And now I'm doing this thing solo, and it's not what I wanted, and it was very traumatic. And so I was a little bit more prepared, I think, than other people who hadn't just recently. It was less than a year. It was in June. Than other people to be able to deal with this situation. Because I realized I just overcame something that I never thought I'd be able to get out of. I mean, keeping the house and all this other stuff. And so, look back to where you have overcome things before and think about using that towards inspiring you that yes, you can. And that, think about what your strengths are from that. Think about how you felt that you couldn't, but you found it inside of you. So use that to know that you have the capacity to get through this as well. Optimism is so very important. I am definitely an eternal optimist myself. Um, you need to anticipate the best possible outcome. What is something that's going to come out of this that's good for you? Okay, what's good for society? For me, I think there's more of attention on mental health. We've been always mental health providers like myself, clinicians like myself have always said that we're not paying enough attention to it, and now it's getting the attention that it deserves. People are starting to really think about keeping themselves healthy. We're really trying. There's been a lot of good of people helping each other. There's been a lot of camaraderie. So what can you do? What is something you can do to change this negative situation? That there's something you can do. There's always something that you can do. Always something that you can do. And the pessimists say there's nothing I can do and not make a difference at all. It's the same situation, folks. An optimist sees that they can do something, they're empowered by that, they're motivated by that, they're energized by that, and where the pessimist just kind of is the victim of their lives, whereas the optimist is the designer of their lives. It's such an important distinction there. And so optimists also have this talent for serendipity. They find the thing that's pleasant, valuable, or useful. What I started doing last summer when I was going through that, I started raising butterflies. And it was a very meditative, or more likely, I should say raising caterpillars, and then I release the butterflies. The butterflies do well on their own. But that was something that was very meditative for me I raised eastern black swallowtails and monarch butterflies to just be out there to, get the eggs and put them in the sanctuary and just, watch these guys grow and, then watch the chrysalis and this train. Of course, it was a metaphor for me, for my transformation, of course, the metamorphosis. So find those opportunities. And then I turned that into I started doing Airbnb experiences, and people were coming into my garden, and I was teaching people how to raise butterflies and pollinators. So you can do this. You have to look for those opportunities, okay? Now, you can't look for opportunities and do these things if you're not taking care of yourself, right? We talked about some of those things. So just some additional things. Remember, thinking about plant-based, I don't mean vegetarian or vegan, movement. I don't like saying exercise because people look at exercise as something that's annoying. So movement, walking, biking, throwing a ball, rolling down a hill. When's the last time you did that? Please don't do any of these things, obviously, if you don't have the ability to do them. Go hiking. The other day I took my kids on a hike and we found some vines, and I felt so bad they hadn't have a swing in forever. We got on some vines, we started swinging. I inflated a pool back here, and we're splashing around in the pool. And so laughter, I think that was one of my biggest lessons in this particular trauma, as I realized I needed to have more of a sense of humor. And I actually, as you hear me laughing, I developed one. I learned to lighten up about things, and sometimes when my kids gripe, I'll make a funny story about it, like. Maybe my kid will say, oh, I wish I had a cookie. I'm like, wouldn't it be great to have 100 cookies? We just fill this whole house full of cookies and try to swim through the cookies. So, we have to lighten up even in these difficult situations. There's something called gallows humor that's been around for a while. It helps us cope. Laughter changes your brain chemistry. Movement changes your brain chemistry as well, by the way. If you are not able to talk with your loved ones, video chats have been shown, that they've demonstrated that they have much more of an impact than just the phone conversation. So if you have the ability to do that, you can do them free on some of the social media. I know that on Facebook you can do it for free. So, those are things that we do. And then just go into Messenger, get in and get out, folks, because once you get in there, you get sucked in. You don't want to do that. Engage in creative pursuits. My daughter and I just built a model car. It was really hard, by the way. It took the entire day, but it was so worth it because, I was spending my day trying to figure out what I'm going to do because I don't want to sit them in front of a screen. So building some of those model things was a lot of fun. Watercoloring, playing music, Fender's offering free guitar lessons. The Museum of Modern Art is offering free lessons in photography and things like that. There's so many fun things that you can do. Bake cakes, even. So many great things. Engage in creative pursuits. So important to do that. And gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. The very first thing you need to do in the morning is wake up and say, think about the things that you're grateful for, right? Even if it's just, I'm here, I have a job, whatever that is. I have, for me, I'm grateful for my 5 cats every day. I love them so much. It's so great having them around. Of course, my children and my work, my life's meeting, and just in general, like the birds, and all those things. I try to practice gratitude and also be grateful for yourself. Don't forget that one. Have a morning mantra. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. And that's vintage SNL if you picked up on that. Mindfulness, deep breathing, do yoga, you can do stretching, you can do, straight up meditation. There's so many ways that you can practice, but it's just mindfulness, just being in the moment. I have mindfulness happen to me whenever I am doing stuff with the caterpillars, whenever I'm gardening. Every time I go out into my garden, I see something grow a little bit more. It's just so exciting. And just also being mindful and being present when I'm interacting with my children, and then saying, hey, mommy needs to go do this now. My office door is shut, and moving on. But when I'm with them, I'm with them. And so when I give them what they need, then they tend to be able to respect those boundaries a little bit better. So when one door of happiness closes, another opens, but often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one that has been opened for us. Find your door, people. It's there. Okay, in this new reality, in this new environment that you're going to walk into, maybe you're the one who comes up with a solution. Maybe you're the one that, maybe you develop another level to yourself. Like I told you, this particular round of trauma for me made me find humor. I wasn't as good at it before. So find that new opportunity for you. It's there. It's waiting for you. Please go and find it. Remember some of the tips that we talked about here today. I know that this is challenging for all of us, and I know you can get through this. I just want to say thank you, everyone, so much for your service. It's been a pleasure for me to serve here today. Every time I do one of these, I feel energized. And so I hope that, you find value in the things that you're doing and you become energized by that as well. And then, I just have my bio here. Those are my little kiddos that I mentioned. But if you want to know more about the work that I do. But again, thank you everyone so much, and take care. And my name is Ria Dark.